No, you gonna dig this.
This is Rhine McLin, host of the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center's Funk Chronicles Talk Back. Recorded live here at DATV Studios in Dayton, Ohio. And now, my studio guests are Skip Reeves, all the way from Denver, Colorado. From right here in Dayton, Ohio, our own Chris Poole and our beautiful Marsha Bonhart. And it's always important to remind you that this show won the Philo Award, and we're very proud of it. Happy New Year 2016, and let's get into the talk. So, Chris and Skip and Marsha, we're going to talk about, let's talk a little bit about Skip. I'm going to start with you and talk a little bit about your history of how you were so interested in getting your radio show and that persistence. And right before we do this, I just want to quote Martin Luther King Jr. in a paraphrase form, is that we make history, we don't make the history. We stand on the shoulders of the history that has been made. So we already have a foundation. We're moving forward. And I think that's what the Funk Hall of Fame is all about. And you have played a tremendous role in this, Skip. Tell us about that.
Well, first of all, my show that I got started, I'm from Denver, as been mentioned. And at the time when I started my show, R&B was gone from the radio in the Denver market. We had the adult contemporary stations that would, throw in a song here and there, but predominantly there was no R&B radio. And being a former musician and traveling like I did.
Excuse me, what was your instrument?
I'm a drummer.
Okay.
I'm a former drummer. And when I would be on the bus or the van or whatever mode of transportation going from city to city, I'm listening to the radio, and it used to just bore me that I heard the same songs everywhere I go, every city, every town. It was primarily the same stuff. So I said to myself, man, if I ever do a radio show, I'm going to really mix it up. I'm going to, play the B cuts. I'm going to play 3 and 4 songs deeper into the release. I'm not just going to play the hits. There's so much music that the populace is being left out of. So that was an idea that I developed when I was on the road performing. What happened moving forward many years later, I went to 2 radio stations in Denver and asked them, hey, I've got a great idea for a show. Would you, have a meeting with me and let me explain the concept, and then, consider letting me do the show? Well, I had one was an email conversation. The other was a conversation on the phone with the program directors. Long story short, both of them said there's no interest in what you want to do. Denver's market won't support it, and the answer is no. So moving forward, a public radio station in Denver, which was a jazz radio station, and they're a very popular jazz station, but they played the older jazz. They weren't doing smooth jazz. They played the old bebop and the Coltrane and all that kind of stuff. But on the weekends, they would do specialty shows. So there was a young black woman who had gotten a specialty show, and she was doing a lot of neo soul. So a friend of mine was listening to the station one day, and he goes, Skip, you need to try this station down here because they got these specialty shows on the weekend. And this particular female, she's doing a show there called it was called Mahogany Soul or something like that. So anyway, long story short, I emailed the program director and asked him, hey, I'd like to come down and have a meeting with you and tell them what I want to do. And they said, sure, come on down. So when I explained the concept to him, he liked it. He goes, that's a good idea. He said, but we got to get the approval of the program director and the general manager. So I got the approval of all 3 of those, necessary authorities. And they let me start the show. So I started the show in 2006. first weekend in 2006. So this month, January, marks my 10-year anniversary of having this show.
Congratulations.
But thank you. But what happened was when I started the show, the program director, because there's a public radio station, he says, I'm going to go ahead and let you do the show. He says, but the only slot that we have available is from 11 to 1 at night, on Saturday night. He goes, it's going to be hard for you to develop an audience with that time slot, because he says, the people that are going to want to listen to you are either at home asleep or they're out partying. So it's going to take you a while to develop an audience. I said, fine, I'll take whatever I can get. Well, within 3 months, the show was getting a lot of attention because once again, there was no R&B in town. And because of what I was playing, not only was I playing, major artists, but I also played independent artists side by side. Because I've always been a supporter of independent artists, because I was an independent artist. And I know how hard it is for them to get airplay. Because when I was in bands, we had our CDs out. I would go to radio station, hey, would you consider playing? And nobody would play it. So I said to myself, if I get a radio show, I'm going to play the music of independent artists. So I've been doing it for 10 years now, and so my format is well established. But that was how I got the show going. I just, this public radio station gave me the opportunity to do it. And it just grew from there. And it grew so much that I had to leave them because they couldn't handle my growth, because I wanted to do so many more things. And with them being the kind of station that they were, they said, Skip, it's you're doing a funk thing, we're a jazz station, and you're doing this, you're doing that, and we can't really include all that in what we do. So I had to move on.
And where did you move on?
Well, I moved on to a digital station. So most of my stuff is on digital now, but I also do my show on a public station in Denver as well. So, Marsha, I'm on digital and terrestrial networks now. So Saturday nights, I do my show on the digital network. With the last Wednesday of the month, I do it on the terrestrial network.
Reading a little bit of your bio, and you say that you were a drummer, and certainly, and even though your focus has been funk, but you have played with all kinds of groups with different kinds of genre. When I saw that you played for Mitch Ryder, because I remember Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels. I mean,
and the devil with the blue dress on was
Yes,
very popular
exactly.
because I was in college in Iowa, so that was really hip.
So from El Chicano to the Rippingtons and Alphonse Mouzon and Buddy Miles, the Marvelettes, you really have a range in terms of interest and in terms of just, how you can play. I mean, because I would think that drumming with the different genres is just a different kind of drumming. It's not the same. So you're an experienced drummer who likes all kinds of music. Why funk? Why focus so hard on that?
You know how when you get exposed to something and something just grabs you. I got attracted to James Brown when I was a little kid. And keep in mind, before James started his funk music, he was just doing regular old R&B. But for some reason, the grittiness of the way he sang just attracted me as a little kid. I mean, like a lot of black households, there was a lot of music in my household. I mean, my father loved the blues. They played all the Motown stuff. So there was a lot of music. But I heard a James Brown song. It's called, That Dude It. Many people won't know that song, but I heard it and I thought, man, something about this guy, So I was a 7-year-old kid. I went out and shined shoes. I used to make money shining shoes. And I made a decent amount of money. I went out and bought a James Brown record.
He used to shine shoes as well.
Exactly, But by then, Please, Please, Please had become a big hit.
That was
And so
the song.
I liked the song. Again, that grittiness, with James pleading, please. I thought
they said Keith Sweat can beg, but James could beg better.
He could.
I think that James Brown taught the rest of them how to.
He did. He did.
And I can still remember seeing him at Memorial Hall. Can you remember that, Chris?
Chris, native Daytonian.
I'm a native Daytonian, but I was a little bit too young.
Please, I beg your pardon. And I can remember him with the red cape. And doing that, and of course now I'm going to say this, I was a kid also but my dad, he and George Tuck and some others were promoting shows and Robert Collier, they promoted these shows, and so we would go down to Memorial, the Motown Review and all of this. So, when you think about James Brown, when you think about the funk music, you cannot overemphasize that we can't afford to lose any of our history, any more history.
Right.
And that is why the funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center is so important.
And especially with you being from Dayton,
Right.
and you know how much Dayton has played a major part, Chris,
Right.
in the history of funk.
Well, this is the epicenter. This is ground zero. I mean, funk to me, it's like Baskin Robbins. Okay, it has 31 different flavors, but Dayton has its own flavor. When you look at bands like the Ohio Players, you look at Sun, you look at Heat Wave, you look at Dayton, you look at New Horizon. Was probably one of the most underrated groups that people don't remember.
That one and Platypus, a lot
Yes,
of people
a
don't
lot of people don't remember
I have a
Platypus.
Platypus LP.
I do too.
Yes.
I do too. Yeah.
But it's very it's very important to recognize the Dayton sound, and the Dayton sound. I think more or less, when people think funk, raw funk, you think of Dayton, Ohio, you think of Southwest Ohio. It's just it's a unique genre of itself.
And what made it so different, really?
I think part of it, I know when I was in school, going to school, I was a Dayton public school student, is that most of you musicians took music classes.
Yes.
I mean, it's only one school right now. I was blessed to have a daughter. She, the only school that actually, look into the arts and parts, being able for kids to be able to read music and know what music is Stuyvesant School of the Arts. We lost that concept as far as our kids today. I'm not hating technology right now. No, technology is a beautiful thing. But being able to read music and know exactly how to play music is more acceptable, I think, as a musician, because you can hear the difference if you go to a live performance.
And we can't get into on this show the politics of all that.
No, it's a
Of
different, it's a whole
that
different
being
show.
lost in terms of budgets and what have you, and,
Right.
and paying for instruments and paying for the
Right.
teachers who specialize in doing that. So that's
Right.
that's another topic.
Yeah.
But but still, a lot of kids took music classes all over this country. But it was the kids in Dayton that developed this specific sound, and that's what we're trying to understand. You could interchange all the musicians from all the different groups, and they could just all blend together.
Well, you had a lot of talent shows back then too. You
Oh,
had a
yeah,
lot
we
of guys,
did. We had them at high schools.
You had the talent shows going around. You had the showmobile, which the city ran for a while. That would go to certain parks, to certain neighborhoods, and every neighborhood had at least one band. Okay, I can remember the first time New Horizon played, and the crazy thing about it, they were, these guys. You wouldn't. If you look at Mark and Bart, you look at the Thomas brothers, you look at Tim Abrams, you wouldn't think of them. Me myself, I grew up with them. If you looked at them, you wouldn't thought of them as musicians. You thought of them as athletes, and they were great athletes. But they would go to the garage, they find somebody's garage and practice, and one thing led to another, and the rest was history. And that was for a lot of groups that was around here. A lot of the older groups playing places like Memorial Hall, playing places like Lakeview Palladium. There was a lot of places in Dayton for up and coming artists.
Well,
to play.
in the old union halls and
Yeah.
things like that. But before we go on further, a lot of folks might not remember what the city showmobile was. Can you describe it a little more, because there's I know you're younger than I, and so you've made that clear, and so and I duly accept it and respect it. However, for those to know that at one time how involved the city was in promoting things. So would you describe what the showmobile?
Well, sometimes maybe about once a month, the showmobile will come around. Now, the showmobile was basically like this big old semi almost. And you take the semi and it expands into a stage. And what this showmobile does, it will go to parks, stop in your neighborhood. I can remember it one time stopping at First Dayton Little League. And the stage come out, you run your electricity, you play.
And I understand it gives everyone access to music, but still, you gestured when I was asking how this particular sound developed in Dayton and Southwest Ohio. I saw you move forward as if you had something to say about that.
What I was going to comment on was that, you know, a few years ago, we know he's gone now, but Mark Adams, the bass player that was with
Yes,
Slave, when I did an interview with him, 3 years or so ago, you know, I asked him the question about how did so many, you know, effective groups come out of this one area. And he made the comment, he said, you know what, he said, Skip, he said, there was this underlying competition between us all, even though there was respect for the other band, but there also was this underlying competition. And that underlying competition made us all want to do just something slightly different than the next band was doing, but we still wanted it to be effective. We still wanted it to get noticed. And what I'm leading up to is that, you know, when you look at the bands that came out of Dayton, I mean, the Ohio Players and Slave don't sound the same. No. Slave doesn't sound like Lakeside. Lakeside doesn't sound like Sun. Sun doesn't sound like Platypus. Don't sound like Heatwave. All those bands have their own sound, but yet they all came from this area. Because, you know, a lot of groups can have the same sound when they come from, and I'm not picking on country western music, but, you know, a lot of it sounds the same. You know what I'm saying? But you listen to these bands that all came out of this area, but they all had their own sound. To me, Mark explained that. He says, but there was that underlying competition. We want to do something slightly different what the next group is doing, but we still want to make sure what we do gets noticed. So I think that competition drove the diversity that came out of all these bands. That's what he told me, and I accept that.
And has it died? Has that Dayton sound died? Where are the groups now? I mean, you know, are there younger groups taking over? What's happened? Technology is taking over.
Technology.
Well, not only the technology, but the media. You know, the media has moved funk music out of mainstream. It really, that's where I blame it. Because with my show, I play a tremendous amount of R&B funk music. It is still out there. It is still out there.
What has replaced it? Hip hop?
Well, kind of. Yeah, kind of. It's replaced it. But that's still the media's fault, though. You know, if the media kept the funk on the airways that we have grown up with, that it has developed into. I mean, there are still bands out there still doing good R&B funk. They're still doing it, but the media is just not playing it. Because the media is concerned about what's commercially successful, what's commercially popular, and what's going to bring in this. And so the hip hop thing, you know, because kids are the ones that buy the records and, you know, spend a lot of time and attention to it. So the media is focusing on that. But
I'm going to disagree just a little bit here about where the media is on that. And I'm going to take it from all the things that you said was true, but it also, funk music gave people a pride and a function. And the media has worked toward subduing a particular group of people of feeling that pride with their music. And so I think that also plays into the fact that they ignore it. I was just adding on.
But in my comments, I'm alluding to what you're saying.
Yes, well, maybe I'm just being a little more direct.
You know, every generation or every two generations will have the specific focus on different genres of music. I mean, remember when they thought that Elvis was the devil because he was swiveling and pivoting his hips, and then it was, you know, rock and roll, and then it moved to something else, and then, you know, now it's hip hop or what have you. But sometimes it just all comes back around.
Yeah, I mean, you think about most hip hop now. If you can listen to a song, you better believe somebody has paid somebody for a sample. It's not completely gone. It's just more or less. Now, I want to say that some artists are mindful of where the music came from. And that's probably the biggest thing. Some that both Skip and Miss Ryan was alluding to earlier about. You got to remember where the underlying music comes from,
the root,
what you use it exactly.
The root.
And you know, the other thing that you got to think about, that if you notice that our young people are now getting exposed to our music again, because on a lot of commercials,
yes,
you hear our music, and now I'm so happy to see the people like Little Richards and them that are going back to try to get their royalties and the things that they've missed and understood, the intellectual property of music. And that's what we see with the new group, is that instead of just singing for their supper, they are now they're developing their intellectual property and patenting it.
Right.
One of the things I'd like to say, and I don't know who's going to agree with me on this or who's not, but to me, music as a whole music has kind of went as far as it can go. Now, here's what I mean by that. For example, technology, they're creating all kinds of new gadgets all the time. But the music element that we've all come to, I don't care whether it's the rock and roll, it's rap, it's country, I don't care. There's nothing new under the sun with music now. There may be additives such as technology and I can sample this, but there's nothing new with music. And because we've reached a point where like, okay, where do we go now? You know what, now they're coming back around. They're coming back around now because when you listen to the music today, what are they saying? What are they talking about? What's the message? What's the intent? All of that has reached it's reached its final point to me. So we got to go somewhere. Well, now it's time to come back to the foundation, the origins, because I think as time has moved forward with the current music that we have, it's not having the same effect on a lot of people that, music to me, I'm gonna tell you, music brought me up. It raised me. And I'm not saying that in the complete sense. I had a good father, right. But music raised me. I used to listen to the lyrics and go, man, this stuff that's out now, what's it doing to people? Is it really, gendering positivity and moving forward and unity? It's not doing that. It's just out there. The music that we came from, it had a harmonizing, a unifying effect in its own little way.
It soothes the savage.
It did that. The music today, so I think they've just gotten so far with it, like, okay, where do we go? We've got the rap, we've got the hip hop, we've got this and that, where do we go with it now? Well, I think this is the opportune time for it to come back to the origins of where funk came from and the influence and the effect that it had on the music, scene as a whole, because music to me is gone as far as it can go. I just believe that.
I think that's a good point because, the other day I was just listening to Marvin Gaye's Make You Want to Holler. Mm-hmm. And when you listen to those lyrics,
How is that? But those are anthems too.
And yes,
those
yes,
were
yes,
That's
yes.
what I'm talking about.
And that's exactly
But
what
who
you're
brings
talking
that back? Alicia Keys brings that back. She has anthem music,
Well,
unifying kinds of lyrics,
But it's not enough though.
No.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, back in the day, you had a large amount of them doing it. Now
like the Temptations singing "War" or "Ball of Confusion," and you can still hear those songs today and be relevant.
Right. Exactly.
How many sermons did you hear from the Marvin Gaye of what's going on? But not only that, if you listen to that's how you learned music instruments, listening to that music. You hear the violin?
Instrumentation. That's
yes, right. Instrumentation. That's when you started picking up an ear for musical instruments. Mm-hmm. I even tried the violin. Didn't work out, but I tried. but the fact is that those kind of things inspired you. Mm-hmm. And if you never knew whether you had the gift or not until you tried.
And I kind of agree with Skip on that. I look at it more music from everything I listen to is more milestones. Where was I at that time in my life? When we talk about music that what it meant not only to yourself but to other people. Going to what you were saying, Ryan, about and Marsha, about anthems. There's been a heck of a lot of anthems that have been written, and you can give kudos to the guys who actually wrote the music for the simple fact that they had a mind that they wasn't thinking of when they wrote it. They was thinking about down the road, from everything from the Marvin Gaye. That whole album was phenomenal. But there's also, another track that I can think of as I was growing up. I can think of a Prince tune, "Sign of the Times." Mm-hmm. If you listen to some of the lyrics in that from that single, you can almost take the video and you can play the first 5 minutes of the 6 o'clock news. For real. Yeah. But you're looking at, I think a lot of it is not so much, the musicianship. I think a lot of it is writing also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Chris, you know what, we neglected to get your specific involvement in funk music. So tell us how you are connected.
Okay, I host a show on Oldies 97.3 called Funky Fridays. What I try to do with my show, I try to bridge the 50s, 60s, and 70s with compassion and funk, and then I want to try to cross stuff over because, as I said before, funk to me is more or less like Baskin Robbins. It's a lot of flavors to it, and what we try to do with my show is that we try to unmask all those flavors.
You know, one of the things that I think that this is so good as we promote the Funk Music Hall and Exhibition Center, the museum, is that funk music is more, it's just like you say, Chris.
Yes,
You can't really pigeonhole it in one place. You know, you can take country and Western music, as soon as you hear it, boom, there it is.
Right.
You know what it is. If you hear an orchestra, you know a symphony, you know, boom, that's what it is. But when you hear funk music, it's like an octopus with all these different arms out there, but the core is the funk.
Right.
And so it's kind of hard to pinpoint, and folks don't really, because when you talk about the father of funk music, most folks refer to James Brown. Well, and
Right.
they're thinking, James Brown and funk? Yeah, well, funk is our music, and that's what makes it so
And
interesting.
it's from the gut. I mean,
It
what
is.
what is funk music? What makes it funky? It's the gut. It's
Right.
It makes you go,
yeah, just like James Brown.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what makes it funky, and that's what makes it distinct. And even though there have been folks and groups that have tried to copy it, I think it's just something that you have to have here.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I really do.
It's kind of like tasting. It's kind of like tasting mustard greens and collard greens. Mustard greens gonna be a little bit, yeah. Collard greens, you know.
or drinking wine or a cooler. Sipping wine and sipping a cooler.
I like to say organic versus artificial.
Okay.
We're over here getting real,
Yeah.
life experience.
We're telling on ourselves. We're telling on ourselves. And and this is one of those topics that when you talk about it, you just really you get emotional.
Yeah.
You get excited. And I want to piggyback on something Chris said. You know, when you hear a funk song, you're going like, yeah, I remember so-and-so broke up with me, or I was roller skating, or this happened. You know, everything in your life is associated to the milestones of your life. And that's so...
And even if you can't sing, you'll sing along with it, you know.
Yeah.
Might even catch a little air guitar every now and then, you know.
Well, you know, and the longevity of these songs is a testament to, you know, the effect. Because a lot of new music that comes out today, after 2 or 3 months, it's gone.
Right.
It's gone. It has no longevity. But that old music,
And that's just what
hear
you were
today,
saying.
and
They're sampling it. The hip hop
Yeah.
artists are sampling it.
Yeah.
You know, my son said something to me one day. Who was that? I said, look, that song would be nothing without James Brown in the back. I don't know what you're talking about.
And we also have noticed that some of these newer artists are intermingling some of the old music into theirs.
Yeah. Well, they have to, because, like I said a minute ago,
They run out of stuff.
It's only so many. You're a drummer. It's only so many chords that you can invent to sound good.
Exactly.
And I think that techno music and things, we're going back, I think you're starting to feel a need to go back to what I would call the raw music, the raw instruments, that horn, you know, not some digital thing, because I don't care how hard they do, you can tell it's just
It's
not,
junk food.
It's hey, that's a good
I
way
was in
to
the car with my
describe
son.
it.
We were listening to Etta James, and he started turning it up. Mom, listen to that. Listen to that. He was hearing the individual, you know, instruments,
Instruments. Right.
and he loves Etta James.
Exactly.
Etta
Tell mama.
James.
Yeah,
Tell
tell
mama. Yeah.
No, mine was
And he has it
Stop
blasted
the
in the
Wedding.
Oh, now that's serious. That should be in a Tyler Perry movie. Stop the Wedding.
Wait, stop the
That
wedding.
sounds like something that would be a good base for Tyler Perry.
Yeah, but I mean, and you got all that in there, and it's just I just get so excited when I think about the music, and you know what? I'm going to tell you, that music has lived through our parents. It's living through us, and it's going to live on. And that's why it's so important that we keep in front of the folks how important it is to promote, preserve the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center. I mean, we got to do it. And having you here, Chris, and having you here, Skip, and Miss Marsha with me during this, and it's so exciting when people see this, and they start reminiscing too, and they get that amen, that amen
It takes us
going.
to a time in our lives, a time and place where we were okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. And there were things going on because you had the anthem music, you had Marvin telling you, had Stevie talking to you, But we still felt that we were in a better place, I think, than now. I think we felt the world was in a better place than it is now. And
I think also during that time, we may not have had money,
No.
but we were all in the same boat. And so there was that unity.
Yeah, we were all in college.
We had unity, and we felt a belonging. And I think every time that Martin Luther King holiday comes around, which we just celebrated, it's another form of reminiscence of music. So this has gone fast.
Yeah, it has.
And I'd like to thank you, Chris, for being here, and Skip and Marsha for a wonderful opportunity. Well, folks, it's been a great show. This is Rhine McLin, host of the Funk Music Hall of Fame Exhibition Center's award-winning show, Funk Chronicles. Talk back. Until the next time, keep it funky.
Thank you.